This is the Detroit Sports Podcast Network.
The biggest icon in podcasting.
Welcome in, everybody, to this week's episode of the DocNJock Wrestling Podcast. On this week's show, tons of releases in WWE. What's going on with this AEW star? When can he come back to action? As well as a major lawsuit with WWE and this very popular WWE star dealing with a bit of an injury, and it's not going so well. So we're going to talk about all of that in news and notes, as well as a monster payday for this one former wrestler. And I say former because he's not employed anywhere yet. Also, we're going to take a look at what's going on with AEW. Do they have a huge problem? We're going to tackle that issue, as well as taking a look at the go-home shows for Backlash from WWE, and doing it with me as always. He's the one. He's the only. He is the Doc, John Macklin. What's up, cuz?
Thanks, everybody, for your patience. Last week was the football draft. Just had no room in the schedule at all for wrestling. Plus, it was a weird week. That last week before, the go-home shows, it just kind of was there. So we took a week off, relaxed, and then full swing. Because you got to remember, we're watching damn near 7 hours of wrestling a week. And sometimes you're just like, oh, I need a break. So thank you for your patience. This week, got right back into it, and oh my goodness, I'm excited. It's interesting, too, when you look at the preview now. I think a lot of people are starting to complain, and we'll start here. I don't think for Roman Reigns, a trios match was the first and best thing that they could have done for him. Coming off of a monster win, you're paired with the Usos fighting up against Drew McIntyre, and you're like, okay, RK Bro is cool and stuff like that, but I just feel like it's a weird spot to be in for that feud, because it kind of sets the tone for Monday Night Raw. Yeah, it's the coolest thing there, but it doesn't feel important to me, at least, heading into what you're calling WrestleMania Backlash. I just think that, I don't know, it just might be the case that they don't have anybody just yet to step in the ring one-on-one with Roman Reigns.
Well, I think the way they've built him, it's really difficult to find anybody believable who will stand opposite of him. Like, even Drew McIntyre. And I love Drew McIntyre. You love Drew McIntyre. Drew McIntyre is a physical specimen. But still, I find it really hard to believe that Drew McIntyre is going to end up winning the title from Roman Reigns. On top of that, if you look at the way that this story has evolved, originally, Roman Reigns comes out, and there's really nothing set for him. But he wants to unify the tag titles. So then he challenges the Usos to go challenge RK Bro to unify the tag titles. And we're building towards that. And then a week, maybe 2 weeks out from the pay-per-view, all of a sudden there's a change where now it's going to be a six-man tag team match, or six-man tag team match, where you've got Roman Reigns and Drew McIntyre inserted into this. And what this really says to me is a couple of things. One, there really is nobody credible enough for Roman Reigns at this moment, right? Like, Drew McIntyre, he's been doing these silly matches with Sami Zayn. So how do we transition him out of doing that to get him into this match with Roman Reigns? Like, how does that work? How do we figure that out on basically the turn of a hat? And I don't think they could do it. Two, I think Roman Reigns is still dealing with a bit of an injury. We talked about what happened at WrestleMania. We talked about how his shoulder looked like it got dislocated and then it slipped back into place. And you go back and you watch that match, you can hear him screaming, it's out, it's out, it's out. When he went to go raise the championships up after he won his match at WrestleMania, he was in intense pain. The very next day on Monday Night Raw, he was in intense pain. I don't think he's 100%. And if you look at the way when I was watching, I think it was either last week or it was this week, and talking about last week, like, there was nothing really good that happened last week. So I don't think either one of us necessarily had a problem with taking a week off from talking about it, because Sometimes we just feel like negative Nancy's when we're discussing these things. We don't want to be. We want to enjoy this as much as possible. Sometimes it's a little bit difficult. But if you watch the way he got thrown into the corner by Drew McIntyre, and then if you watch the way McIntyre hit him, there was a lot of care taken to it. There was not like wild haymakers. It was a lot of let me baby you into this corner and then let me work with you. If you look at the way Roman was then pushed back into the corner after he fought his way out, if you watch how Drew McIntyre wrapped his arm around Roman Reigns' body and back and then like pushed into him, it wasn't just tossing him. So I think he's dealing with a bit of an injury. I don't think he's 100%. And I think that's why we end up with the 6-man tag. I think that's why this storyline feels like it's kind of fallen flat a little bit and feels like it's kind of rushed. I think the big issue for me, you have these so-called unified championships, and we're going to talk, if you hang around till news and notes, we're going to talk about why these aren't actually unified championships and where that pressure is coming from. But you have these so-called unified championships, and WWE has done such a good job of making them the most important storyline on both of their shows that when they're not defended, and those things haven't been defended since WrestleMania, I think both of the shows feel a little bit lost. They feel a little bit devalued. You said it yourself. Best storyline. Anything that RK Bro is doing. I find it incredibly humorous. I find it incredibly gripping. I went to a concert on Friday night, came home, and I basically fast-forwarded through most of WWE just to kind of get to certain parts that I felt were interesting and I thought were fun. And I stopped and I watched the entire RK Bro segment in the beginning and in the end. And I watched the little interviews in the back with Kayla Braxton, who has done a fantastic job as of late. On Friday night, she struggled talking to her microphone when she was with the Usos, but otherwise she has done a fantastic job. And to me, it feels like the only thing you really have going on both these shows is this one feud. Everything else seems to be a complete miss. Has WWE maybe built their main championship a little bit too high and put too much of their shows into that main championship basket to where everything else feels like it's less than, and it doesn't feel great. It doesn't feel like it's a good show unless that title is either being worked around or built up for a match.
Yeah, what a great comment by you, because you have an Intercontinental Championship, a U.S. Championship, both tag team titles, and they don't feel important. They don't feel special. And that's wrong, because you have the show built around Roman Reigns and the Usos and RK Bro, and it's not much else. So it is to the point where you can legitimately say they've skewed it to the point where it's so top heavy that outside of Cody Rhodes and Seth Rollins, there's nothing else other than watching the wrestling match to be invested in WWE. And that is terrible when you have The Miz, when you have the likes of talented women. But that's what it is that it doesn't feel important. I mean, you had Asuka return, and it just feels like she returned right back to the same shit she was doing before. It's like, where's the specialness? I like Becky Lynch and what she's doing, but her look is just really tough to get into for me, that crazy Karen look that she's got going on.
She looks like my stepmom when my stepmom wakes up off the gym.
So it's
know exactly what I'm talking about too.
It's not a look that nobody is looking for with Becky. Big Time Bex is a great angle, but the look is a little bit creepy. So look, we're going to talk about it here in regards to other great talents, The Miz, Mustafa Ali, Tommaso Ciampa. You have enough to build it, but yeah, you just got to shine the spotlight absolutely a little bit stronger, and that's what it is. And yeah, you could be masking an injury for Roman Reigns, but you could still have him do things that, still seem like you could have even teased once Cody Rhodes just walking by him, just briefly.
Yeah.
Just like you don't have to have a word said. It's just Roman talking. He looks up, you pan, and there's Cody with a little smirk on his face, and you move on. And then you tell everybody, without telling everybody, this is where you're going. So it's just that little bit of that side salt that you got to just add to the delicious plate. Everybody knows you just add a little pinch of salt to everything, and it makes it that much better. Your doctor's going to get pissed at you, but you're like, when you add that little pinch to the salad, it makes it pop. And that's what WWE is missing. They're doing their shows, but it's not popping. And that's why I think maybe you and I are even, when you look at a new angle that was established on Raw with Mustafa Ali and you have Tommaso Ciampa come in, I think everybody, that saw that segment was laughing at all the inside jokes, calling Mustafa must and all that stuff. And having Miz, I think, something that could now, if you added a little bit of highlight to it and some time, could be really good and maybe even build to a feud. Austin Theory and The Miz really have some chemistry together.
Yeah.
Where if Miz wasn't really an in-ring performer, Miz could be an ultimate valet. And to have him potentially, you could be seeing in 5 years, maybe The Miz will be Austin Theory's valet. But then you have it end, and then Tommaso Ciampa comes in and lays out Mustafa Ali. How interested were you, and what would you make of that start to an interesting new feud on Monday Night Raw?
Well, here's my thing. I think having Mustafa Ali, because he's very good on the microphone. Also, he is a guy who I think we all care about. Like, Mustafa Ali was supposed to be, before Kofi Mania, it was supposed to be Mustafa Ali. That's what was supposed to happen, but he got hurt in a match with Randy Orton. So I think we all care about Mustafa Ali and him going away and him airing a lot of his dirty laundry on Twitter. For them to lean into it as heavy as they did, you get the sign-off from Mustafa Ali and you get Vince McMahon saying, yeah, let's go do this. And the issue with Mustafa Ali not wanting to do whatever Vince wanted was he felt like it hurt his, not so much his character, but it hurt his nationality, his national pride. And we all know how Vince does things. You can go back and look at what took place right around 9/11. There were a lot of things that were done that were, if you look at them now, they're just very distasteful. Mustafa Ali wasn't going to do that. I find Mustafa Ali and The Miz going back and forth in verbal warfare to build towards a match very interesting. And I find The Miz incredibly interesting. Like, we all know The Miz is like the best heel that WWE has. The Miz is a top 5 talent in WWE. He's just that good. He doesn't get talked about enough and doesn't get enough credit. But The Miz is that good. And The Miz will make you care about a returning Mustafa Ali. And this is the way this kind of works. This is how wrestling works, and I think we get away from this a little bit sometimes, especially in WWE. You have a good guy, you have a bad guy, okay? You have to hate the bad guy, and it helps you love the good guy more. And you need to love the good guy. That way, when something that the good guy does or doesn't do, it means more to you. Mustafa Ali returning after, 6 months, 7 months? I don't care that much about Mustafa Ali right now because I haven't seen him in 6 months. I remember all the good and I remember I remember a lot of the bad too, because remember, he was part of that stupid group that was trying to take everything over with T-Bar and Mace, and it completely fell flat. And it died a horrible, painful, slow death.
Oh my God, was it Retribution?
Yes, Retribution.
Oh my God.
He was the leader of that. So you bring Mustafa Ali back and you don't really give us anything to sink our teeth into or really get invested in. So when he beats The Miz, the crowd pops. The crowd doesn't pop for Mustafa Ali. The crowd pops because The Miz lost because everybody wants to hate The Miz. And then after that, you have Ciampa hit Mustafa Ali from the backside, blindside him. Wait, why? What's the storyline here? Where are we at? You get this for 2 weeks now. I'm not invested in this because, one, I like Mustafa Ali, but I'll be honest with you, I don't care about Mustafa Ali because I haven't seen him in 6 months. Him going up against The Miz, I find very interesting, and I can get into that. Him beating The Miz, okay, that's cool. The heel loses, that's fine. Or if the heel wins, some dirty trick to win. Okay, that's fine. Give me a reason to care about Mustafa Ali. I don't have it yet. I don't hate Ciampa. This is Ciampa's first this is his first Raw feud, right? His first one since he was brought up, then sent back down, then brought up, then sent back. This is his first big time feud. Why do I hate Ciampa? Why is Ciampa a bad guy? Because I'll be honest with you, I'm not in love with Mustafa Ali enough to hate Ciampa for hitting him from the backside. At this point, this looks like it's something that's taking place at a bar that I might be at, and I'm like, oh shit, what happened there? Why did that dude just hit that other dude from the back? Why did he just smoke him out? I'm wondering what took place. I bet you the one dude who's laying on the ground was probably talking about the other guy's girlfriend. I bet you that's what happened. That's how I am with this. I'm just a fly on the wall watching this. I don't care because I don't hate Ciampa and I don't love Mustafa Ali because I haven't been given anything to latch onto, to care about. And I think this is a large problem with WWE. A lot of times they will force a storyline on you and they'll tell you how they want you to feel, but you don't actually feel that way. So you don't get invested. And that's where I'm at with this storyline. I'm not invested. I'm invested in everything that The Miz does. You and me both. We love The Miz. But I'm not invested in this storyline to care about it even a little bit. And that's kind of where I'm at with it. You need to give me something that makes me fall in love with Mustafa Ali. Like, if he was to get tag teamed by Austin Theory and by The Miz, and to be beaten within like an inch of his life, you start to get a little bit of sympathy for your baby face. You start to care about him a little bit more. But Mustafa Ali coming out, beating The Miz his first night, then Mustafa Ali having a match the next week, you're just kind of like, all right. And in between all of that, Ciampa hits him from the backside 2 weeks in a row. You're just kind of like, well, why aren't you going after Ciampa? Why are you going after The Miz? Like, you kind of feel like this is a dumb baby face. Like, you're an idiot. You should be fighting Ciampa, not The Miz. You know, I find the way that they book stories, they tell you stories, it just doesn't work sometimes. And I don't necessarily think I'm way off base here. I think it's just bad booking. And I think that's what you have with the Mustafa Ali and the Ciampa storyline, is it's just bad booking. Are you finding it difficult to get invested in a returning Mustafa Ali? This was a guy who, I think, maybe 2 years ago, 3 years ago, we were all on board with him. You and I were having a discussion about this guy possibly being the WWE champion, and now we're here. You have Retribution in the middle of it. You have a 6-month layoff where he's not there, and now you got this guy getting jumped by Ciampa. Not even Tommaso Ciampa, just Ciampa. I mean, yeah. I find it very hard to get invested in these guys. I'm wondering if you feel the same.
Yeah, and I think that's been kind of the theme to start the show, has been, what are we invested in outside of the main 5 guys, the main feud? And it's tough. I mean, I thought that a lot of things that they're trying to do are like the seeds. They're starting at the beginning. But when you have the disparity in the gap between, you know, the main event and Mustafa Ali and Tommaso Ciampa, I think it's a good start. And it's curious to see because, you know, I'm a little concerned for both because I think both need to win the feud. And that's tough in that, you know, do you have a Tommaso Ciampa come into Raw and then lose a feud and put over Mustafa Ali? It doesn't make sense. And Mustafa Ali needs to get over. So I find this pairing to be a little bit tough for both, and that I think they both need it equally. I do care about it, but I do find it tough to care about a lot of things.
Though, if this storyline was set up, if they were going up against more established stars, like people who have, like, there's a reason that you love this person and there's a reason that you hate this person, and you have Mustafa Ali going against the person you hate and Ciampa going against the person you love. Like, it would just, I feel like it would just do a better job of getting that heel heat for Ciampa that he needs,
right,
and getting Mustafa Ali over as that babyface.
Right. It needed to be a couple of feuds in between before they did this. Absolutely. I think you're absolutely right. And then you look across the roster to SmackDown, and it's crazy. They spent a month building Lacey Evans only to kind of have her come out and do the same I need respect gimmick, and I didn't like that. Like I said, I think that, you know, I'm finding Raw, obviously, because, you know, the weekend, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday comes like the fresh start to the week. So I'm a little bit right now more excited to see Raw. Because I definitely popped to see Seth Rollins. By the time Friday hits and it's SmackDown, it's more of an afterthought because there's nothing there. And I think it's hard to look at Lacey Evans' return as anything but like a dirty diaper, something that was really, it falls flat. It hasn't done enough to garner anything. I mean, the only thing on SmackDown that I kind of like, I mean, Charlotte Flair and Ronda Rousey has been a flop. I enjoy seeing Sasha Banks because she's just someone that you're like, okay, look at me, and she's got the total package. So that, beyond Sasha Banks, the SmackDown women's tag titles, the women, they don't really have a whole heck of a lot of my attention.
Well, here's the thing. I want to build off of something you just said. So in that tag match, right? In that tag team feud that's going on, of all the women that are in there, there is only one that you're interested in. I'm not interested in Naomi. We all know Naomi is a great talent. She is incredibly gifted physically. She's awesome. Her promos lately have been lacking. You look at Natalya. Natalya is a steady workhorse. She is glue that helps keep a women's division together, but she's not somebody that you're ever incredibly interested in. Shayna Baszler, her character has been worked and reworked and has fallen flat so many times, and that is on the WWE and that is on their creative team. The only person of those 4 women that you are invested in is Sasha Banks. That's not a good thing. That's like, you're not invested in this team. You're not invested in this team. You're invested in one person out of 4. And that's a poor job by either creative or by the talents to get themselves over. And I don't really believe it's the talents, because I believe Natty could take a wet paper bag and help get it over if you told her what you wanted her to do. I think it's a poor job by WWE, one, with their card positioning. I think it's a poor job with their match length. I think it's a poor job with how their matches unfold. It is a bad job of just storytelling at its finest for that tag division, for the women. There's nothing there. And since those belts have been around, there's been nothing there that has got you invested or got you to the point where you're like, I've got to see this match. I've got to see these women fight. There's been nothing there, because their tag teams aren't real tag teams. They're individuals that have formed an alliance and like, okay, let's go get a belt because we've got nothing else to do. And that's what you get. You brought up Ronda Rousey, you brought up Charlotte Flair. That's going to be one of the biggest matches of this weekend, of this Sunday at Backlash. That is one of the matches that they have built this entire card around. And I don't care to see it at all. I don't want to watch this. It has completely fallen flat. There's nothing there that I want to see. And I hate Charlotte Flair. I'm not a fan of Charlotte Flair. I think Charlotte Flair has been gifted a lot. I think she's incredibly talented. I think physically she does a ton of great stuff, and I think if there was one woman who could wrestle a man and it would be a good match, it would be Charlotte Flair. I don't think she's the problem. I think the problem is Ronda Rousey. I think Ronda Rousey hasn't held up her end of the deal in this match, in the build to this match. And that's a major issue, because this is your number one and this is your 1B going at it from SmackDown. These are your 2 biggest women. And if the one is on a level, and I think you would agree with me, if Charlotte Flair is on a level that is basically as tall as the ceiling in your house, and then Ronda Rousey is on a level that is probably where your desk is at, what does that tell you about the rest of your women's roster? You know what I'm saying? It is really hard to have a compelling match, or to get me, get you, get the average fan invested in something where you've got one person who is heads and tails better than everybody else, trying to bring somebody else up to that level, and that person just can't get there. And that's where I feel Ronda Rousey is. I don't feel like this incarnation of Ronda Rousey is necessarily working.
It's not, and it's terrible too, because you look at it and you're like, you need the help of the mid-card guys like Sheamus, Ridge Holland, The New Day. I mean, how many times are they going to fight each other? It's like, okay, this feud has to end.
Bro, I fast-forwarded through all of that match. I was not interested in it.
Yeah, exactly. By the 5th time you see The New Day fight Sheamus, it's like, okay, are they in a rhythm? It's like, okay, they can move on to beat up other people. And yeah, exactly. And then here's the other part too, is that seemingly I would be interested in Baron Corbin and, Madcap Moss, but it just doesn't ring right. I think Baron Corbin is being way underutilized and has the potential to be a bigger star, but it felt like this gimmick set him back. And to see him now fight Madcap Moss, it'll be the culmination, and we'll talk about it when we preview the matches for Backlash. But yeah, it's just nothing there to the point where it's intriguing, and I think that's where the copy-paste, the storytelling hasn't been that great to get you invested. They got to find new ways to tell these stories other than Ronda saying, I'm better than you, I can tap you out. The gimmicks that they use, like the tap-out challenge, are disrespectful to the women in the ring, to have them losing them.
That's the thing too, right?
It's disrespectful.
So, like, on Friday night, you've got Aaliyah in the ring with Charlotte.
Right.
And Aaliyah is supposed to be a talent that you're supposed to be building up. Putting her in the ring with Charlotte at this point does no good for anybody. Because unless she gets a win over Charlotte, you've done nothing to help establish her. You've done nothing to help build her. Instead, you throw her in there and you just feed her to the wolves, and it's like, what are you doing?
Like, the art of professional wrestling is to have losses, go in a different way, or to have people that get in the ring, like, get over a little bit. Like, you don't have to win a match, but you don't, like, get taught of, like, oh, we're gonna have a beat the clock challenge, and Ronda Rousey beat her opponent in 95 seconds, so we know Aaliyah's gonna get her ass beat in 96 seconds. Like, come on. That's not what we're looking for when you're building up a character that you're trying to do. And I think that's, you and I are in the same boat. We don't like those kind of gimmicks and things like that, and contract signings and shit like that. It's like, okay, let's be a little bit more creative in our work here. And that's why I think SmackDown and WWE didn't do the best job this week of getting to where you really, like, if you miss Backlash, you're not going to miss much, because I think you and I are pretty much going to be in lockstep with a lot of the predictions. You didn't miss much. It was a C+ week for WWE in their programming, and they got to pick it up. And sometimes I think maybe that might be the case because it's WrestleMania. You peaked. You're like at a 10,000 where it's heat, it's hot, everything's good, the return of major stars. And then you just have to have a natural lull because there's no off season. And so it's not like you're going to get the best of everything right after WrestleMania. So, I think that's where it's at. And that's what this Backlash is for everybody. So let's get into it. Where are we at in calling the card? And let's get into it. I want to get your thoughts on what's going to happen on this pay-per-view.
All right, so calling the card, I hold a 4-point lead over you, 5.5 to 1.5, as we reset at the beginning of the year. This, not as big of a card as I was expecting. I was expecting a much deeper card. The last couple cards that we've had have been incredibly long. So long where we get halfway through it and I'm looking down and I'm like, holy cow, we still have 4, 5, 6, 10 more matches. This one, much shorter, much more condensed, and I think you're right. If you're going to miss a show, I feel like this is the show you can go ahead and miss. I don't feel like there's a whole lot here that you're going to be writing home about. So let's kick this whole thing off. The one show that both SmackDown and Raw have been built around, the 6-man tag match, the undisputed WWE Universal Champion Roman Reigns and the SmackDown Tag Team Champions, the Usos, versus Drew McIntyre and the Raw Tag Team Champions, RK Bro. Who do you have winning this?
Does it happen now? It's crazy. We've seen hints that RK Bro was going to be broken up only to have them fight to stay a team. Does it happen now where Randy Orton pulls the trigger and joins the baddest group in the WWE? Is it time now to set forth the path in the new year? Or does somebody else turn like we've speculated on? I have a hard time seeing Drew McIntyre winning this with RK Bro because, I could see it in that you could then maybe write off Roman Reigns for a minute, but the proper thing to do is to have the best team win the match. So I have Roman Reigns winning it.
Yeah, this is how I think it's going to play out. And I think of everybody who is in WWE right now, the one person who could go toe-to-toe with Roman Reigns, he's actually tied up in a tag match right now. He's in a tag team, and that's Roman, and that's Randy Orton. Randy Orton is like the only guy who I feel could go head-to-head with Roman Reigns, and you're like, that's a viable opponent. That is somebody who can win that belt and win that championship. But he is right now in the most entertaining thing that is on any show that you watch, and that is RK Bro. The way I see this working out, I think RK Bro and Drew McIntyre are in line for the win. They've got the pin. You've got Paul Heyman on the outside, does something. Somehow, some way, Roman Reigns and the Usos undermine it, and get the win. So I'm going to go Roman Reigns and the Usos with some outside interference from Paul Heyman. Now we've got Cody Rhodes and Seth Rollins basically having their part 2 match from WrestleMania. Who do you have winning this one?
I don't see Cody losing for a minute. He's over. White, hot, babyface Cody Rhodes.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think this is kind of how you cap this, whatever this is, right? I don't think it's going to be a trilogy. I think we'll have 2 stories. This will be the second one. I think Cody Rhodes wins and moves on, and I think we call it a day from here. You allow him to get into his next feud. Maybe that's with Roman Reigns. Maybe he's that next guy to challenge Roman Reigns. I feel like it'd be incredibly quick for that, but maybe we start dropping seedlings, like you said, passing him in the hall, kind of looking over his shoulder. There are different things that you can do. Them just kind of maybe running into each other, bumping into each other. There are different things that you can do to make that interesting and really build that possibly to SummerSlam, because I feel like that could be your SummerSlam main event. All right, SmackDown Women's Championship, the I Quit match, Charlotte Flair, Ronda Rousey. Nobody really cares. Who do you have winning this one?
Well, in the 50-50 booking, it has to be Ronda Rousey, right? I mean, they're not telegraphing it any better, right? It's Ronda Rousey.
I'll agree with you, because what the hell? That's kind of where I feel like it's going. It has been Charlotte-led. It has been Charlotte-dominated. And the way that they told the story at WrestleMania, Ronda Rousey should have won that match, but Charlotte won it underhandedly. I like you said, 50-50 booking. I feel like we put a title on Ronda. Why can't we put Ronda with Paul Heyman? Like why? Why can't we do that? Why can't Drew Gulak talk for Ronda Rousey? Why can't that be her manager? Drew Gulak has been great. I'll be honest with you. Watching SmackDown the other night, I totally forgot about this. Watching SmackDown the other night, I seen Drew Gulak in the ring. Guess what I did? I stopped. Exactly. Remember, I watched the whole thing on Fast Forward. I stopped and I was like, what is this? What's going on here? And then I seen he was going up against Gunther. And I was like, never mind. He's about to get fed to the wolves.
Or if you want, I think LA Knight could do the job, man. He's becoming he's a talker. LA Knight with Ronda Rousey would be interesting.
That would be great. That'd be fantastic. And get her somebody to talk for her. And just somebody work on her facial expressions, because it's horrible. You make your money with your face, and her face just makes me want to take all my money away. All right, Damian Priest, barred from ringside, as AJ Styles gets into it with Edge. Who do you have winning this one? Because I think this might be the one where we differ.
Yeah, see, this is tough, right? Because at some point, Edge needs to get revenge. Do they add a new member? I have a hard time picking against AJ Styles because he's taken the worst of it, and now he's barred from ringside, so does AJ get over? I'd have to think that you're progressing towards something cool, but then you go, okay, how does that factor into Judgment Day when you have Edge trying to rise up? So I think that it just would make sense that Edge would win this. But I have a hard time because you look at it logically, what happens is someone gets the worst of it and they go over and over again. So this one probably has the highest potential for a wonky finish where there's a no decision. I think, here's how I'm going to classify it so I get it right. I think AJ,
look at you twisting it.
No, I think
you just got to pick AJ Styles or you got to pick Edge.
Yeah. No, I pick a DQ. Edge is going to do something to get disqualified. So Randy Orton. So AJ Styles
wins, but
AJ Styles by DQ.
Okay. Okay. Like how you cover all your bases. All right, so this is how I see it playing out. I think Edge is going to win this one. I figured you'd go with AJ Styles. I think Edge wins this. And I think this is where you get that introduction of that new member. And I think that new member is Rhea Ripley. I think this is how you bring her into the fold.
Oh, nice.
And she helps Edge out, and I think he gets the win. So, again, Damian Priest barred from ringside.
Poor AJ.
But Rhea Ripley's not. So, unless, this is what could happen, though. Finn Balor could come out and help because they two-sweeted themselves a whole lot the other night. And that was very cool. I popped super hard for that.
Very, very telling, yep.
All right, Bobby Lashley versus Omos. God, another match I don't give a shit about. Who do you have winning this one?
Yeah.
This is horrible. This pay-per-view going down this card is absolute trash.
I think it's time then. You can't have Omos lose, so it's got to be Omos. with a distraction, obviously, with MVP getting in the mix.
Yeah, I agree with you. Like, the only way Omos wins this, because he is a trash bag, if I've ever seen one, is you have MVP get in and distract Bobby Lashley, or you build to Cedric Alexander coming in and distracting Bobby Lashley because he's upset that he got kicked out of the Hurt business back in the day. So you could go back and pull from that storyline. But either way, this is another match I don't care about. Speaking of matches I don't care about, Happy Corbin versus Madcap Moss. Here's the deal. I think Madcap Moss has an incredible look. I hate his ring gear. I think it's absolutely stupid. I think his character, absolutely stupid. But I think Madcap Moss has the talent to be a very good wrestler, be a very good star in WWE. I don't know if he would work anywhere else because he's just so over the top, and that's what WWE loves. They love over the top. I feel like he has all the makings. He's got a good look. He's decent on the microphone. His in-ring work needs a little bit of polish, but you can work on that and you can get better. I mean, Stone Cold Steve Austin only had 4 moves, and he's one of our favorite wrestlers of all time. So you can work on it, and you can get better. I feel like what they've done with Madcap Moss is really pigeonholed him into a stupid gimmick. I think if he gets a win here, he can break out of that gimmick and maybe break out of the Happy Corbin shadow. Who do you have winning, Happy Corbin versus Madcap Moss?
Yeah, Madcap has to go over. I think he's the guy that the crowd is building toward, and I think that, Happy Corbin can take losses one after another, so it's no problem. So give me, in a nice victory, Madcap Moss.
I'm going to go Madcap Moss as well. Again, I think you get the win here. You get new ring gear. You get a whole new persona. You get to move forward, and you get to work your way up that mid-card and possibly challenge for U.S. or Intercontinental Championship, possibly challenge for something bigger down the road. It's all baby steps, but you got to get out from underneath whatever this stupid gimmick is. It's absolutely horrible. All right, so to recap, we both have Madcap Moss winning. We both have Omos winning. We both have Ronda Rousey winning. We both have Cody Rhodes winning. We both have Roman Reigns and the Usos winning. Where we differ is Edge and AJ Styles. I've got Edge. You've got AJ Styles. You want to do a quick review of Impact? They've got a big pay-per-view taking place on Saturday. You want to talk about that real fast?
Yeah, absolutely. Impact was really solid, and I'm fascinated with a lot of things. Well, first and foremost, there was something that happened that was concerning to me in that AEW used one of their talents, and it bothered me in that, I thought that William Morrissey was now kind of moving up the ladder in regards to the feuds that he was having. And he then goes on to debut at AEW. And I thought that potentially that he should have been used in a way that was presented a little bit different. This is a big man. This is a huge man. And I felt that why would
Let me have you pause this for a quick second, because I want to save that for AEW, because I have an idea of where you're going with this, and that is where I really want to unfold and unpack this AEW conversation. So I don't mean to derail your Impact segment, but I want you to save all of that knowledge that you have and all of that information you have, and I want you to save that for AEW. Is that okay?
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. We're going to talk about it. Absolutely. It's just, I'm very, like I said, over the past couple months, I thought that William Morrissey did a good job, at least recovering from where he came from. You know what I mean? In regards to everything that happened and everything that went down. So I thought it was an interesting situation, especially with how he was used. I thought, hey, six figures, everything, no problem. It's interesting in regards to where Impact is at. You started off with what I thought was a great match in regards to the tables match. You had Brian Myers taking on William Morrissey. And I just think that the feud that they had culminated in a tables match, and it was interesting in that both of these guys talking trash to each other, the things going on. It was a good match. Everything that I thought you would want to have in a match went well. Good rivalry. Brian Myers coming over has done an unbelievable job And, with, the digital media champion Matt Cardona and Chelsea Green getting in the mix as well, I thought it was a wild and chaotic open, and it was pretty sweet. I think that you're going to have an opportunity to see continued work with them. Impact overall, like you said, building to a major pay-per-view this weekend. And you had in the main event, in the middle, I thought something interesting that people will, I think, gravitate toward was the Tomohiro Ishii versus Steve Macklin match. I thought that was interesting because Ishii's going to challenge for the Impact World Championship at Under Siege. And so if you want to kind of get a sense of where Ishii fits into the mix, have a look at this match. I think that, Ishii is somebody that can be someone that maybe is in line down the road, but not yet to take over the title. You had Jonah taking on PCO in the main event, and PCO delivered a Hurricane Rana that sent Jonah onto several chairs in the ring. It was sweet. It was a brawl. It was crazy. It was really good. PCO got the win. And Honor No More gets over. Recent vignettes and the way in which PCO has been kind of getting over lately kind of indicates that you got somebody that's kind of moving up the ranks. So Under Siege is going to be good. I know Kenny will have the highlights for us as he always does. I think Impact has done a great job, but for me, my focus just really has been on, okay, who are the big stars? Josh Alexander, Moose, and William Morrissey just have taken over for me. Obviously, Bullet Club, Jay White are in the mix there every week. And the women, could be better and will be highlighted again by what AEW tried to do this week. But overall, Impact's promotion for Under Siege is going to be good. Check out the match card in detail, and we'll get after it next week as a recap of what is going to go down in Under Siege. But I think Josh Alexander is going to walk away still the title. Ishii not yet ready to take over.
Yeah, it was another fantastic build to what looks to be a great pay-per-view this weekend, taking place on Saturday with Under Siege. A lot of talent on this card and not a lot of Impact talent. I find it very, very strange. In a lot of these matches, there are guys from other wrestling federations or organizations that are taking place on this card, and I find that to be interesting. We talk about this forbidden door always being broken and kicked down. And I think this is a perfect card that really highlights and illustrates something that Impact's trying to do by bringing new talent in, bringing rich talent in from all over the place, and putting them basically on their platform to get over. I think it's great. All right, let's get into AEW. So I did not mean to stop you and to bump your train of thought, but I wanted to save this for here because I find what AEW has been doing doesn't do a good job of getting non-AEW talents over or making you care about storylines.
Best way
you talked about William Morrissey showing up in AEW and taking on Wardlow. And look, I think the winner of that match was right. I think Wardlow should have won that match because that's kind of the story that they have told so far. You fast forward to the main event of that match, and you've got Deonna Purrazzo, who is the Ring of Honor champion, going up against Mercedes Martinez, who is the Ring of Honor Women's Champion. And in that match, I really felt like Deonna Purrazzo should have probably have won that match. Now, I get she's not signed to AEW exclusively. She works with Impact. But to me, what AEW has done is they've done a really poor job of making you believe that non-AEW signature talent is going to get a win. Anytime somebody's in the ring with somebody from an outside organization, I don't believe they're going to win. Like, you have Ishii in there with Adam Cole. Ishii's not going to win. You have Morrissey in there with Wardlow. Wardlow's walking away the champion. You've got Mercedes Martinez in there with Deonna Purrazzo, who I feel is a fantastic women's champion. I think she is great. I thought that match sucked. And, Deonna Purrazzo is great. Mercedes Martinez is very good. And yet somehow that match sucked ass. I don't know. I was not interested. I was not into it at all. I think AEW has done a very poor job creating storylines with non-AEW talent, and you have basically undervalued and you have taken the shine off of non-AEW talent. I want to give you the floor because I think you were going in a great place with William Morrissey. William Morrissey taking one power bomb from Wardlow when everybody else has taken 9 power bombs from Wardlow.
Right.
I think you do a really bad job, and I think you really tarnish his reputation.
Yeah. It's like William Morrissey's not enhancement talent. He should have been used to come in and handle business and get the win.
Also, he looked great. He looks like he is in phenomenal shape. Looks like he might be doing a little bit of the roids with all this acne on the back, but he looks like he is in phenomenal shape.
And here's the other thing too that you brought up that ties into this. Match placement. The women's match was dead. The crowd was not into it because they don't know who this person is. When you know the type of match that Rey Fenix is going to have with an opponent, and you saw that was almost match of the year candidate in terms of the match that was just before the women's match. And then you do the women a disservice because the crowd's like, who the hell are these two people? Why are they fighting why is the Ring of Honor World Championship for the ladies in the main event? Absolutely not. You should have ended the show with the high that was that match. I think it was Rey Fenix and the performance right there in my head, but, you'll tell me who it is, but it was an unbelievable match. And it was unbelievably well done.
Dante Martin. Yeah,
exactly. And you say to yourself, "Oh my God, they were over. The crowd was into it. This is awesome, chant." And you go, "Okay." And then you go to the women, and there's nobody interested, and nobody cares about Mercedes Martinez unifying the Ring of Honor World Championship. Okay, that's how you do it. Okay, and that's the problem that you're having is that there's got to be better ways in 2022 of yes, I understand that if you look at it from the other side, Wardlow's over. So how do you get Wardlow more over? Our belief is that you have him, continuously, face challenges and hurdles. Kind of like Bryan Danielson did back when he lost at WrestleMania in 10 seconds and everyone got on his side. Same thing with Wardlow. He's been battling to get out of his contract. And Kenny brought up a great point in our group chat. What you could have had happen is that you could have gotten Wardlow to the same spot by having him lose a lot of these matches with MJF the heel continuously costing him opportunities. And that's, I think, the better way to go. But, the route they took was Wardlow winning a bunch of matches. So you have an opportunity for the match now to happen. And you said it right. William Morrissey didn't deserve to take that loss. It was sad, and it just really cost him momentum and steam, which didn't need to happen. And you're right. With AEW, they do a lot of good things well with Samoa Joe. They do a lot of good stuff with Rampage and, the Trent Berettas and the Swerve Stricklands and the Darby Allins and stuff like that. They're right in that right mix of doing the things they need to do. But you're exactly right, is that they kind of are making it so that some of the talent are getting, put in spots that are going to be rough. And a lot of it has to do with the women. And in some of the, a little bit overemphasis on the groups. But, the one point for me this week that just caught my attention as I was watching, the last couple weeks is the Young Bucks really have kind of taken a back seat in the company. And yeah, they're about to enter a feud with the Hardys potentially, but where have they been the last 6 months? They're there, but why are the Young Bucks a team that's like taking a back seat to Chris Jericho and the Jericho Appreciation Society? I think that they're great. But the Young Bucks should be way up there on the card. Why are they taking a back seat to FTR? Well, they should be in the mix.
I think there might be a bigger storyline that is being told, and it's only one-sided right now. So remember, you have a guy like Kenny Omega who went out, and when Kenny Omega left, Adam Cole was like, "Don't worry, man. I'll take over and I'll lead the group for us." And I think what you're seeing how the two lead their faction a little bit different. And I think what'll happen is when Kenny Omega is healthy enough to come back, you will have a split within that group, and you will have Bobby Fish, Kyle O'Reilly, and Adam Cole go their own way, and you will have Hangman Page and the Bucks go their own way. And I think that sets up for a really interesting 6-man match. You have a trios match. And don't be surprised if AEW ends up building belts out like New Japan does, where you have a trios tag team. And don't be surprised if your very first trios tag team is Kenny Omega and the Bucks. I could see that happening. Now that's just speculation and you have no inside knowledge, but I think that is kind of where we're progressing and that is where we're heading. With all these factions, because you talked about it, with all these factions in AEW, think about it, how many trios do we have? You've got Penta, Rey Fenix, and you got Pac. You've got, when Kenny comes back, you got Kenny, Young Bucks. You've got Adam Cole, Kyle O'Reilly, Bobby Fish. You can look at Santana Ortiz and Eddie Kingston. Anybody from the Jericho Appreciation Society. Like you could have 3-man tags all over the place. Depending on who is siding with Ethan Page and Scorpio Sky for that day. Might even be Frankie Kazarian, depending on what happens with this upcoming TNT championship match when Frankie Kazarian takes on Scorpio Sky. You could end up with them. So you have trios all over the place. Don't be surprised if that's what takes place. And I think the reason that they're getting this backseat push, like you said, is more to basically pull them out of the spotlight. So when Kenny comes back, Kenny's like, why haven't you guys been doing anything? What have you guys been up to? How have you led this? What have you done? And really getting into Adam Cole's shit, I think it sets up a nice story. And speaking of Adam Cole, somebody who Adam Cole has struggled with is Hangman Page. He hasn't been able to beat Hangman Page. Hangman Page comes down to the ring, cuts a promo talking about CM Punk. To me, it really feels like the fans have kind of turned on Hangman Page, especially that crowd in Maryland. It really felt like that crowd was not having it with Hangman Page this past week. What are your thoughts on are we getting a little bit of a shift? Now, when we go to the next AEW pay-per-view, which is coming up, it's going to be Hangman Page versus CM Punk. Does CM Punk end up winning that championship? I know we talked about this a couple weeks ago, maybe even last week. Does CM Punk end up winning that championship, or does Hangman hold on to it? Because it seems like the crowd might be getting tired of Hangman Page.
I think what's best for wrestling is Hangman Page, but what's best for business is CM Punk. And it's right there is the first time that we'll get a sense of where Tony Khan is leaning. Because I think the wrestler that needs to keep the belt is Adam Hangman Page to establish his brand more, to maybe even become a heel champion and have a turn with the belt. But that heading into the summer, heading into things, having CM Punk with a year-long reign with the title would also be beneficial. So I'm curious to see. Yeah, I think that it's just in certain feuds, you realize that certain people are going to have to take, in certain angles. And I think the tough guy shit with Adam Hangman Page plays well. I don't think he's going to become a heel. I think he'll be a heel for this feud. And then I think he's probably in the end going to end up winning it because I think the AEW brand values titles and CM Punk will have no problem rebounding after a loss to Adam Hangman Page.
Yeah, I think you're right as well. It probably makes sense from a business standpoint to keep the belt on Hangman. It's just interesting to kind of see where this is progressing. And
right.
You and I both believed he was ready for this. And we both believed this was going to be the future of AEW. When he was the first challenger, when he took on Chris Jericho for that belt and he lost, we're like, it's just a matter of time before he gets it, he wins it, and he's the guy. Him being the guy, I don't think it's gone as smooth as all of us had hoped. I don't think it has gone as smooth as we really would have wanted it to go. It feels like there are some bumps in the road. And you have to remember where we came from. Like, we came off a great storyline. We came off a great build with him and Kenny Omega. And now he has the belt. And I just don't know there's something missing and I don't know what it is. I haven't been able to put my finger on it. And that is a little bit frustrating. I think you're right though. What's best for business? Probably Hangman Page keeping the belt. What was your show of the week? Which one did you like the most? Was it Raw? Was it NXT? Was it Dynamite? Impact? Smackdown? Rampage? What did you, if you have to watch a show, or if you have to watch a match from a show, or if you've got 35 minutes to take in as much wrestling as you can take in, what show should somebody go to?
Yeah, Seth Rollins' appreciation was a decent segment, so I'll go with Raw this week.
it's funny because a lot of times I really want to lean heavy towards AEW because I feel like they do a really good job of giving us that old school wrestling that we really, really like. This week felt like Dynamite was kind of a flat show. Rampage, kind of a flat show. Dynamite had a lot of warts on it that we just kind of picked at. I think you're right though. I think Raw gets the nod. I think Raw was the best show this week.
All right, cuz, hit me with this week's professional wrestling news and notes. What made your list?
All right, there is some real concern that AEW may be caught in the crossfire between the post-merger restructuring of its network partners. TBS and TNT, as the new Warner Brothers Discovery era begins, Discovery has acquired Warner Media and subsequently owns and controls AEW's airings on both networks, which are TBS and TNT. According to the new report in Variety, TBS and TNT have both halted production on scripted series and are no longer developing any new scripted content. This measure comes after the new company, Warner Brothers Discovery, has promised to find $3 billion in cost savings throughout the new corporation post-merger, including scrapping the recently launched CNN Plus. Like, that was just launched like a month ago, and they're just getting rid of it just to save money. It's crazy to me. In a report from Deadline, CFO Gunnar Weinfelds estimated that over the past 15 months, Warner Media pulled in $40 billion in revenue, but reported virtually no free cash flow due to their heavy spending. It's unclear if any impact this belt tightening at the network partner company might have on AEW as they continue to have their current deal that'll run through 2023 after the last signing with Warner Media's pre-merger in 2020. So 2023 is when their contract comes up. It'll be interesting to kind of see what takes place leading up to that contract signing. Remember, AEW, basically, they themselves have tightened up a lot of things. That's why a lot of guys aren't getting re-signed, and that's why a lot of big deals aren't going through. That's part of the reason why Cody left, is because AEW isn't 100% sure what their next contract, their next television contract is going to look like, and it makes things very, very difficult for them. In the follow-up to last week's note on, or 2 weeks ago's note on Bray Wyatt, wanting too much money to wrestle, a new report shed some light into how much he was making in WWE. Prior to his surprising release from WWE in July, Bray Wyatt was reportedly the beneficiary of a huge contract. According to Wrestling Observer's newsletter's Dave Meltzer on Sunday night's Main Event podcast, Wyatt was making $4 million per year before getting released. Now, since this has come out, a lot of wrestling companies have shied away from signing or even talking to Wyatt about signing because of how much money he was making. They know that they can't match that, and they're not even willing to try or enter into negotiations with him because that is a crazy amount of money. All right, WWE changing plans with NXT stars, and this is something that basically blew up over Twitter this past week. On the heels of WWE releasing several superstars from NXT last week, a report has surfaced regarding potential new mentality within the company when it comes to NXT signees. According to Meltzer, WWE may now only give signees 90 days to show improvement after they sign before deciding whether to release them or move forward with them as developmental prospects. Some of the 10 performers who released this last week seemingly fell into that category, while other veterans who had been with the company for a while. Dakota Kai and Malcolm Bivens were reportedly released due to, in part, having no interest in re-signing with the company before their contracts expired. That's come from Fightful Select. Dexter Lumis was also released despite appearing regularly on NXT over the past couple years. No reported reason was given for his departure, but the fact that NXT is now only more slanted towards young wrestlers could be the culprit, as Lumis is 38 years old. Other superstars who were released despite appearing most weeks on the show were Harlan, Persia Puria, and Draco Anthony, all of whom signed with WWE last year. Their departures may have been the case with WWE not being happy with their progress. Now, some information has leaked about Darius Martin and his injury. If you remember, I think it was 2 weeks ago, we talked about him being hurt and injured. The AE star Darius Martin of Top Flight is expected to be out of action for at least another 6 to 9 months after being involved in what is described as a nasty car accident. he did post some pictures showing some of his injuries on Twitter. Martin had only just returned to the ring this past March after being out for over a year due to a torn ACL. Sounds like he'll be on the shelf for a bit longer now as well. Now, a class action lawsuit has been filed against All Elite Wrestling for allegedly violating Americans with Disabilities Act. The plaintiff is claiming that AEW's website, shopaew.com, is not accessible to visually impaired people. A similar lawsuit was filed against WWE and WWEshop.com back in 2020, but was resolved shortly thereafter. Now, don't count on getting rid of the brand splits or going down to one title anytime soon. According to Dave Meltzer, it comes down to the TV network's wants and needs. Meltzer said both networks kind of want unique rosters. Meltzer was quoted as saying during a discussion with Brian Alvarez on Wrestling Observer Live, you can do some of the back and forth, but really Fox in particular really wants its kind of exclusivity on its guys. Meltzer ended up continuing to say that NBC also wants exclusivity with its guys, but not pushing as hard as Fox. Fox is the biggest proponent of this push to have its own guys on its show and not having that crossover. Now, Big E tweeted out an update on his neck injury. For those who are wondering, he stated, for those desirous of an update, my C1 apparently isn't healing optimally. I'll spend the next 4 to 6 weeks in a brace in hopes that I can avoid a fusion. But don't you fret. I've got some tremendous support system, and what shall be, shall be. So Big E letting everybody know that not doing as well as we had hoped, and the fingers are crossed that he will be okay going forward. We'll see what happens. Again, broke his neck with a really nasty bump when he was wrestling on the outside with Sheamus and what's his nuts. The guy was really unsafe in the ring, dropped him right on his head. So it really sad to see Big E kind of go down this way. That's going to do it for this week's wrestling news and notes.
Absolutely, man. Great work as always. Make sure to follow Adam on Twitter at AdamRSTROZ. Follow the network at Detroit Podcast. If you've agreed or disagreed with any of the content this week, hit us up. Let us know. What do you think about the last 65 minutes of professional wrestling talk? One thing that AEW did that we can finish on is they listened to the fans, and Tony Khan took the advice and shed light on the fact that, hey, stop making the crowd dark. Let's see some crowd reactions. And so far the company seems to have liked it. Is it translating into ratings? Not just yet, but we'll see over the summer how the ratings will shake out. Good stuff as always. Make sure anywhere you listen to your favorite podcast, you type in Detroit Sports Podcast, and our favorite and your favorite content will find you each and every day as we break down Detroit sports and the world of professional wrestling. Let's check out Backlash. Let's see what comes of it. I think surprises are ahead as they set forth a new path for WWE moving forward. So I can't wait to see it. I can't wait to see how this is going to shake out for Cody Rhodes and the trios match in the main event. So, let's break it all down next week. And please, let Rhea Ripley come in with some kind of weird stick, whack AJ Styles over the head, join the group, and give AJ Styles the victory. But Judgment Day, meaning that, hey, AJ Styles is now going to be the target in the future, in this summer. But if it's Finn Balor, oh man, I think that would send some decent shockwaves through the wrestling community, especially after that awesome Too Sweet. Great podcast as always. I can't wait to talk professional wrestling next week on the DocNJock Wrestling Podcast.